All right, video 7. So one of the things I kind of went a line of thought I wanted to, again, with the traits of what it means to have as a change maker, the traits of a change maker, is the 5th chromosomal level in us. And trust me on this one, that is part of the enhancement programs, the military projects, everything that's more or less been going on our planet, is to try and figure out how to change the original reseeding of the 4th cycle human races that were reseeded after the fall of Atlantis, where a lot of what we call the 5th cycle energy were blocked deliberately to avoid the ramifications of the fallen 5th cycle genetics that were a huge part of the problem at the fall of Atlantis. Plus, as you know, the 5th cycle energies are connected to the 3rd cycle, to the timeline event where these two types of cycles were blended. The 5th cycle components from the Serum workstations were pushed back into the 3rd cycle as part of the original program and project, as you know from the whole perception logs. And they're blended with the 3rd cycle energies, and with that pulling in a lot of old stuff from the 3rd cycle. They should have remained in the 3rd cycle. They should never have been allowed into the 5th cycle of our reality field. But they thought that was a good idea, and that led to the timeline event, and we have been struggling with ramifications of that ever since. And when we reached the 5th cycle in Atlantis, where we were supposed to be able to undo the effects of the timeline event, as we are trying one more time now, as things are now, then shit hit the fan, and we had too many lunars in our reality field. We had too much 3rd cycle energies, and the 3rd cycle ill-mindedness took over and created the Dark Masters of Atlantis. And you know the story, how that one goes. What we had been battling off and had succeeded quite well with in the 4th cycle after the timeline event, which led to the beautiful new beginnings of New Atlantis, so to speak, where everything went well, but eventually they deteriorated over time, and the 3rd cycle ill-mindedness and insertions just grew and grew and grew. The more they worked with energy, the more they transformed in more and more selfish ways, because with this change maker 5th cycle working with the programs and the technologies, and if you didn't have that kind of block stopper, or your 4th cycle tribal awareness of the responsibility of the wholeness kind of were just overridden because you thought your idea was grander and better, and you were better and stronger, and you were this and you were that. As we're seeing it in many males that are being so cocky, they are, oh, I am this, I am that. And if you push them and you call them a boy, they kind of go, what do you mean by that? I'm a man, I'm a this, I'm that, and whatever. Go all Italian here, right? So you can't do that. And that's some of the issues that males on our planet are struggling with from Atlantis, because they carry the Y chromosome of the 3rd cycle. So that's the foundational issue in many males. Even though they have a strong X chromosome, it's still there. And if they don't struggle with it as in kind of in their human awareness, they're definitely struggling with it subconsciously. And it comes out in all sorts of weird ways where they need to have some sort of power. If they're very, very kind males, some of them actually develop a kind of sexual perversion where they are infatuated by slutty females, for instance. That's one way of that 3rd cycle energies coming out, the superiority issue where they want to be the dominating with the big dick, and she wants to beg for it, kind of screwed up sexuality fantasies, where it then comes out there because it's not allowed anywhere else, because the mind is also in some kind of spiritual compassionate mindset there. I'm so good, I'm so compassionate, and then just have to push them a little bit, and then you see all of their ugliness come up to the surface. Or I'm so mellow, I'm so easy to work with, and then you just push them a little bit, and then they become all territorial and are really shitty ones that are just really being nasty to you when you are trying to taking away some of their jurisdictional rights. So we are having that, and females can do that as well. There are many, we are getting more as we're going into the planetary activation cycle. We're beginning to see some of the really ugly sides of females, because that is where we have the X chromosome linked up to the second cycle, the 2-4 configuration that females carry, where males are carrying the 3-5, we are carrying the 2-4. And that is some things I've been struggling with as I've been clearing out the fetal pattern imprint that I got from my mom. I talk about this in the whole transition science classes, the advanced work with the emotional field. So that's part of who and what we are. We need to clear out the fetal patterns of our parents and what we got from them, so we can get into our own template, higher order energy system, original configuration that is in alignment with the cycles we got to. So if you kind of before the reseeding had reached the highest potential of the 4th cycle and had begun the 5th cycle, then your challenges as a change maker will be to fight off all of the things that went wrong in Atlantis. And trust me, I've been dealing with the males that had that. That's part of the Psyche as Energy course, where I explain a template where that's that male that had all of the Atlantean configurations and all the things, and he still is under what we call the imprisonment programs, and they are literally impossible to get out because they carry all of the worst sides of the 5th cycle of Atlantis, and therefore they are not having much potential. So it's better to keep them in their Pleiadian insectoid configuration and just let them wear out with the 4th cycle. But they can, of course, be ignited. So that's why I was presented with one, because as the Orion energies came in, he ignited on the dark side of whoever he was. And he didn't know it, because it took him over. And whenever he was doing it, he was in a different personality. And when he resumed to his Pleiadian insectoid personality matrix, he would not recall what he had done or what he has said and how he had behaved. And that's a very unstable personality to live with, just to put it that way. So that's some of the ramifications of the attempt of the military projects to insert some of the Atlantean genetics without knowing that many of them were coupled up to some really, really unfortunate levels. Of course, some of them were part of the projects directly to integrate Orion, Fallen, Dark Master, Atlantean genetics into the human population. Of course, that's also part of some of the projects, but he was not. That was one of the ones that were actually trying to beat it off. But at the same time, there is this problem. Once it's in, it has a tendency to retract humans and circumstances that will build up a larger momentum for the infected genetics to unfold their content in the energy system. Meaning that due to the laws of our system of energetic and genetic affinity, if there is a high percentage of infection, circumstances will be drawn to create that energy, so these genetics can fold out and be either, they fold out to be activated so they can be activated and cleared up. But if the person is completely taken over by these dark forces, there's no transformative urge, because everything will be in the orientation of being superior and just want more power. So that's the problem with the dark genetics. And these are also some of the things we will see as we go through 2025 and until 2034, that those who have that type of genetics in them, they are in for a very, very severe struggle of learning to understand that in these situations, they are going to be taken over by something that is much stronger than they are in their personality matrix. And unless they recognize the signs and are able to see that happening to them and then take it down, nip it in the bud, it will be very difficult to get out of. Trust me, I did not see the ramification of the recoding by living with that guy for 3 months. I did not see what happened to me, including some of the other people I have been around for a longer period of time while I was in Australia. So I didn't see what happened to me until it was full bloom. And then it took me years to get out of, years, because the infectious rate was so high. But that's what happened to our system. And that's why things went so wrong after the timeline event, because people really didn't see it before it was too late. So you see, it's not just about us here in these cycles being a little bit lethargic and being too slow. It's all we already done. We played that one out so many times that we didn't see it before it was too late, because we thought we were better than we were. We thought we had things under control. We thought we have this. We know this. We got technology. We got progression dynamics. We have the principles. We have the laws. We have learned the 4th cycle ways of being around each other. We have the Kalakar code. We have the technology to support everything we're doing. So we got this. We are going to beat the infection. Woo-hoo-hoo. We are so skilled, right? And then we had Atlantis, and we went in and we opened up and we allowed more of the refugees of the third cycle to come in because we got this. We're so strong. We have this, right? And see where it all went. So that's part of the military projects, to try and take these Atlanteans, some of them deliberately, others as in kind of, these were the Pleiadian genetics of the Atlanteans, and not really seeing the dark backdoor that was inserted into them that led to the Orion system, because these Pleiadian genetics were one of the ones that fell first when the Orions came in and took over Africa. Just to put it in context, that part of Atlantis that has now become Africa. There is this, that's the understanding. That's why when I'm talking to people and I'm pointing out you're in a very bad state, and people don't take that well, they just kind of, I don't want to hear that, because how am I going to beat the odds? If you tell me I'm no good, if you tell me I'm weak, if you tell me I don't have the skills, if you tell me I haven't got the genetic composition to do that, and if you tell me that I have a high infectious rate, if you tell me our template is fucked, and if you tell me at the same time I'm up against aliens and everything is in a way that it's impossible to do anything, how do you want me to respond to that environment? How do you want me to create that psychological goo that is going to make me going, that is going to make me push forward, that is going to get me to do things? And the answer is in that question, right? What is the answer? Step one, yes, you can rely on what you're saying. You can use as what I'm saying as a kind of incentive. But if it makes you go into that position of giving up already, as in kind of, these obstacles, they're against all odds, I'm not going to do that, that's just way too much, then you haven't got the fifth chromosome. Because the fifth chromosome, in spite of all of its superiority issues, which is some of the things we really need to struggle with, as in kind of, I got the greatest balls of all time, right? We know that one, so that's not good. So we need to battle that one with our heart field, and really detecting when it's slipping from being a strength that helps us transform energy and carry the radiation energy so we can transmute everything, because our mind field is so strong that when we look at something, we're literally evaporating it with our laser sight. Let's just play with that idea, right? It's not true, but let's play with that idea, because that's what the mind field can do when it works correctly. What you connect to holographically in your expanded perception field, you can transmute into dust if you like. That's some of the ways I'm working in the fifth dimension. So with that skill set, you can figure out that if you haven't got your principle 8 and 9 in check, as in kind of the rightful use of energy and the rightful use of power for the highest good of the many and the collective, and not just your little well-being, you can easily see how that will become a dark master. So that's some of the struggle that we have to do when we're dealing with this superiority fifth cycle energies, that we are to go in and say, I can yield the strength, but I don't become an ass or a jerk while doing it. That's where many men slip. They have the fifth cycle chromosome features. If they blend their X and Y internally, they will create the fifth chromosome, because that's where they will transform the third cycle via their X chromosome, via their activated heart field. And that, if they do that correctly and purify their sexual energies and all of their maleness and all of these versions that is inside this reality, and not just because they are getting in touch with their female side. It's nothing to do with that. It's about mastering the fourth cycle energies that goes with the 410 pillar. And these are sciences, mastery of energy and how to use energy in its correct way for the reality field and the highest good of the many, and governance in its true potentials. Then they will understand the fifth cycle. Then they will activate the true fifth cycle chromosome, and not the one that goes with the fallen Atlantis, because that's what most males will do also when we reach the planetary activation cycle. They will slip right into that one, because nobody has taught males on our planet to be in the correct type of consciousness structure and the correct type of mindset. They got the hunter, they got the conqueror, they got the scientist, they got the warrior, they got the soldier, they got all sorts of things where males are supposed to be in a specific way that has very little to do with heart energy. And if they are in the heart energy, then they are new agey, love and lighty, and they have no control of their subconscious. They have no control of their desire system. and they are too weak to battle it. And many of them are even too weak in their physical demeanor. There's kind of these unpleasant males that are all nice and kind, but there's nothing maleness about them. They slip completely into the fourth cycle slug component. Sorry about saying it in that way, but that is a fact. And many females are kind of in awe when they have these males that can listen to them, and because they are so accustomed to all the other side. Anyways, so we are having a lot of problem. I can go on with the females as well, but from where I'm standing, as things are right now, as it has been until now in the 3-9 pillar activation and cleanup cycle, that was the males. And we have not come where we should come with that one. We have had a lot of bleeps up there: Me Too movement, sexual harassment, political systems, gun policy, abortion policy. Whenever these things come up where they could really integrate a complete, original, well done governance where everybody's equal and where power is used in the right way, they are failing again and again and again and again and again. And we're seeing it over and over and over again, how the male consciousness is not living up to its potential and understanding how to integrate their X chromosomes. So in the 2-8 pillar activation, where females will face their own demons and all of their flaws, that's what we're heading for the next 9 years when we reach from 2025 until 2034. That's where females, all of our dirty laundry will be pushed up to the surface. And there we will see that females will probably not master that good either, because they have a lot of programs that for so long has pushed them into roles of being mothers and partners and daughters and things that are depending on the context that they are in, and they are not strong individual beings. So they have a lot of things to learn there as well, when they are to blend their 2 types of X chromosomes, finishing the 4th cycle, leap into the 5th cycle with the Syrian type of female, the Sothis Egyptian. That's the last goddess we had that had the original Syrian female consciousness structure, and not the Inanna version of it, or Venus, or anything. That's the Baal version of it. But the original one, and not the screwed up one that were later in Egypt. But she was the last, what we call Pleiadian with Syrian consciousness on our planet. And that's just part of, anyways, it's just something I know. It doesn't really matter. So I know what that is. I know how it looks, and I know the compassion and the understanding that was in that type of consciousness of the female, but it all goes with the laws. It goes with principles and laws and rules. So everything is just judged according to the highest good of the many, the highest good of the reality field, what its original purpose and function is. And that can seem very heartless for many. And there is not many second chances there. She was a little bit more compassionate. She did give a little bit more second chances and third chances. But once the distortion rate got too high, then that was it. That was separation. That was seclusion. Then you go into quarantine. Then you go into the enclosure. So the 5th cycle is all about rationale for the highest good of the many, but that can tip over again as in kind of, what is the highest good? What is the many? Who is the many? So it doesn't really matter what we're looking at. There are traps in everything. And the only one that can really control these trap mechanisms and these blind sides and these hidden, distorted energy units and infected genetics is us. And the only way we can do that is if we run a tight show with who and what we are, as in kind of whatever we are being challenged with, we always hold it up against the principles. And you can say the highest good of the many or the law of the one. What could that be? And I explain all of that in the transition science classes, where I go into different details of what it means and how we can look at things. And let me just use another more simple, practical thing. You're standing in front of a dark master. You're being so highly influenced by all of his shitty energies, and you're feeling how it affects you. You can almost see your code system begin to turn dark, get dark edges, and you kind of feel how that darkness is just enclosing in on you. You're getting angry, and you're getting that strong, negative, shitty energy in your heart field. And sometimes you might feel depressed by it. You can feel sad by it. You can feel aggressed by it. all depending on what he wants to activate in you when it's in your field. And you're looking at that thing and you're thinking, okay, how do I get rid of this one? And you have to respond quickly, because this is not about having a long conversation. If you have a dark one, that's a fully infected eternal being in your field. You have to think within 2 split seconds. And what do? You go for his cube, you go for his symbol, you go for his configuration, you go for his elemental, and you go to his craft, if that's where he's got in. If that's lunar oriented, they typically have crafts. Or you go for whatever, you go to the library, you find the Book of Life, you find his original configuration, you clear out all the infection right away with the radiation field, and then you transform everything he is into his original energy, from where you release whatever's left of viable genetics in that dark thing, and then the rest will collapse because you have removed the viability. That's the highest good of the many, and for the dark one. At least that's how it works if you are a releaser, because the dark ones that come into my field, they want to be released, but they don't know how to do it. So I have to do it for them. And from a normal human perspective, you say, I can't do that because that doesn't feel right within my human value system. No, but that's because you don't know what a dark one is and you haven't encountered one yet. You haven't seen what it does to other people. You haven't seen how high their infectious rate is, and you haven't seen how they have taken out entire systems. And you definitely don't know how the master collective of the dark Atlantean timelines, they work on trying to conquer the entire universal structure, teaming up with all the negative agendas in the entire universal structure, right? So if you kind of put it into that context, you kind of think, yeah, if they want to go, probably best just to let them go, right? Because then there's one less to be concerned about. But the ones that turn completely dark, they have got nothing to activate of the original holographic units, and therefore nothing to release. And they never come my way unless they really want to shit me. And then it takes up to 2 weeks before I got myself reconfigured. And at that time, I need to self-contain, because at that time I have the code of that thing in me, and therefore I shouldn't be around people. So that's self-responsibility. And that's unpleasant as people are, if you are in a tribal community, family setting, and you're doing this work. And if you are on the level I'm working on, the 8th dimension, and you have had that encounter and people say, oh, I got this birthday party and I want you to come, blah, 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 blah. You say, well, I can't come because I'm beating the infection of a dark one. Can't do that, right? So you just have to call in sick and pretend, and then people are kind of, oh yeah, you didn't come, and you have to go with guilt trip and blah, 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 and all these kind of things that just creates more distortion in you. So that's the problem with the tribal oriented people that are trying to do the change makers. You're trying to be a tribal human, but you can't, because the decisions you have to make will be within a scientific range of understanding of why you need to do what you need to do. And other people within the 4th cycle, the tribal ones that have not yet developed any of these skills, will not understand it because they have nothing to compare with. They're just looking at you and saying, why? Even when we have the normal change makers that are just trying to change the world with doing something using specific technologies, this is called the water solution again, right? They put in so much work that they're working day and night, because that's what change makers do. We always work. We never stop working. We might have a day off from time to time, or take a couple of hours off watching some stupid movie, as I do, just to relax for a little bit. Or do exercise, or go for a walk. But we're still thinking. When I'm exercising, I'm still thinking about solutions. When I'm sleeping and going to sleep, I'm still thinking about solutions, until I can say, yeah, now I need to shut down. So I'm thinking about solutions all the time. I'm thinking about issues that need to be dealt with, what I need to do and how I could do it, what the solutions, what can I invent, what I can come up with, what tools do I have, how do I do that, what's the right way to do this. I'm always thinking. I'm not stressed by it. It has become a natural way of me to be. I'm not burned out by it. This is how I vitalize myself. I vitalize myself with finding challenges I can work with and transform and solve and create into something else. And yes, it has taken years of practice to get there. From where it was something that my 4th cycle lethargic female body said, I can't do that. Shifting into the male negative energy via my encounters with males that had that energy, including my ex-husband and my father, transforming that, learning to be around them in peaceful manners and accept them for what they are, and learning not to trigger any of their pointers. That goes with the Y chromosome, which I really learned when I was living with that guy in Australia for 3 months that had that very strong version of it. So learning all of that process, I'm pretty sure he will not agree with me in this assessment. Of course not. He will not agree because he doesn't remember half of it. So, as I said, while he's in his Pleiadian nice version of himself, he's a really, really kind and nice guy. But he did not remember the times when he turned and became something else. That's only something I carry with me. And I can't argue with that. I can't say that. The only way I could have given it a proof is if he could remember it, which he never did, because that's what the clever masters do. So the other option would have been to film it and then present it and say, see your pupils there, see how you are, see how cold you are, see how listen to what you're saying. This is a version of you that would have, I'm wondering why I didn't think about that when we were having some of our wild energetic battles, which came out in discussions, of course, which he was thinking was just a rational discussion and not really seeing all of the weird hydra things coming out of his spine and blah. Oh, that would have been good if I could have filmed it, because then people would get it, including with people writing me emails and thinking they're rationally explaining to me why I'm not okay with what I'm doing or why I should do things differently. They're not seeing the energies that are behind their words and their actions. If they could see that. And in a way, with the 2-8 pillar activation, perhaps that will be clearer, because people will begin to really see it. But then the question is, how will they respond to it, and what will be their solutions to this? Are they then transformers or change makers, or are they just the ones that are going into a defensive position and then just makes everything 10 times worse? Because with the true warrior transform energy. And the true warrior is also capable of putting down his or her sword when necessary, and also going into a very strong counter position if that's necessary. Because to be able to really use the radiation energies and the true purpose of the heart field, compassion is so much more than just being kind and caring. So much more. It's all about what is the right solution for that entity in front of you. And you only know that if you're strong enough to get the information from that entity without being affected by it. That's what a warrior truly is. And then assist and help that being to its highest potentials again. So that's also part of the 5th cycle. And that's where the Atlantean used the wrongful way of using power. They used it for purpose that were oriented towards their own grandeur, their own I am so fucking good mentality, which again, as I said, goes with the 3rd cycle. So that's also one of the reasons why females don't typically have that very strong version of the Y chromosome, I am so good. And if they do have, there are females with a very strong Y chromosome, even though it's cloaked in an X chromosome. You know them, they are around, you look at them and you say, yeah, you have a female body, but everything inside of you kind of is male. You're kind of working male's ways. Yeah, you might have been a mother, but yeah, you might have 10 kids, but yeah, you're definitely 3rd cycle female, because there are 3rd cycle females as well. And they show the same traits. So don't get all hooked up on females are better than males, because in the 3rd cycle, males and females, after the timeline event, they were equally part of creating all of the shit in the worlds that we have. And that will also, as I said, that will be some of the things that will be more visible as we go into the 2-8 pillar, where the female energy will really begin to activate, so that we will see our weaknesses and where we have our challenge points, and then we will get the chance to change it and see if we are doing better than the males did throughout the 3-9 pillar activation processes, which we can say not many of these males mastered the spatial energies into the correct use of energy and the correct use of power, which is the 8th and 9th level of the 3-9 pillar. We're seeing it. It's all about, we're having it with the governance. It's all about correct utilization of resources, correct utilization that goes into the whole environmental issues, the correct political ways of behaving. We're seeing all these ridiculous battles around the world with governance and elected people, democracy. You're seeing it all already. It's falling apart. That's the 3-9 pillar. because everything is activated there. So it should revert to its original purpose and function. And since people are not responding well, then it's collapsing and showing the worst side of them, the polarity of it, and where they have their weaknesses. And nobody, Boris Johnson is not thinking, oh yeah, perhaps I should have done something about being so ridiculous and kind of partying when everybody else was under lockdown and whatever was going. That's so male, right? That's the typical version of the XX male, so to speak. He has a Y chromosome, but he is very insectoid oriented. Just look at him. Anyways, and we're seeing the other dark male figures around the planet. Anyways, we have had plenty of these guys trying to take over after the fall of the Old World Order program, the ISP in 2016. We have had this line of we saw it in Australia, we have seen it in America, we had Trump, Boris, and Scott Morrison in Australia. Same brew. And we also have Putin, which is now, unfortunately, succumbing to his own Y chromosomal features and some of the insertions and being recloned too many times. So he is now beginning to fall apart. But we're not being told that here in the West. It's cloaked in the whole war situation where he's just becoming more and more taken over by whatever is controlling him. Let me put it that way. So that's not going to go well either. So we are having these challenges ahead of us as change makers. So the first important step is, many of you are thinking, change makers, there's someone that's making a better world. Yes, but what does it take to make a better world? Some of all the things I said here, it's energetic, it's political, it's in our past, it's in our present, it is our current human form, it's in our weaknesses, it is in how we respond to the circumstances around us, it is in the challenges that comes ahead of us and are presented to us already now. It's given by the different factions that want to take us over, because that's part of the law that you have to give the chances of taking over your own reality field before you shift it into something entirely else. And humanity is flunking again and again and again and again and again and again. And therefore, the solutions will be those of us who will go into the joint collective will not be able to do so. But we must, as individuals, do the work that it needs to be done. And then later on, once we have shifted as individuals and changed our energy system and our periphery system, as in kind of the influential sphere we have around us, and we are working accordingly to the original sciences, understanding the alien technologies, understanding the environment we're part of, understanding the other humans that are around us, understanding everything, and still responding in a transformative way where we're working for the highest purity rates, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate according to our system, which means we also understand the sciences of our system. We are then equipped to be able to go to the table of negotiation. There we will have leverage because we will know what we're talking about. There we will have a say. Whether it will be holographic to begin with in whatever, whether it's in the parallel universal matrix, or you want to battle the dark ones, which I can't recommend because they're infectious, or you do the enhanced humans and you're working on whatever solutions that they find interesting, because your sciences and your knowledge matters to them. They have an interest in knowing this, because they are confined by their systems and their genetics and what they have worked with and who they have aligned themselves with. They are influenced by that, and by that have lost track of our system. So our leverage is that we know how this system works, but we're not doing this to maintain the prison or the enclosure. Not at all, because that's not in anyone's interest. That's like the animals in the zoo. The ones that were born there, let them die out. But we don't create new generations that are being stuck inside the zoo. We take care of the ones that are in the zoo. These animals were born in captivity. Let's take care of them, make as good a life for them as possible. But those of us who understand this, we then also work for, if you choose to become a parent, you work for that the next generation will be able to do the transition, be part of the transition. Everything we do should be oriented towards incorporating the understanding of the transition, the sciences of the future, which is not transhumanism, bio, nano bullshit tech things that are going with the machine worlds. That's not what we're talking about. Because technically any idiot can come up with that, and it's already there, even though the general population is saying, oh, it's in the future. No, it's already here. It's already implemented. They're just not talking about it because they don't want to put it out there. There are plenty of companies that are already changing our worlds, including when we have the whole chemtrailing. Sometimes it's from the humans that are doing it, other times the enhanced humans groups, other times it's the aliens, all depending on what they want to do. The higher up it's the aliens, the lower down it's the humans that are doing weather modification and weather control. It's already implemented. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it's not there. And then when they're ready to put it into market as in kind of, yeah, now we can reveal the secret, then they put it out as an, oh, we just discovered this, and they just put a branch of the scientists that are new in that section as in kind of, yeah, we just discovered this brainwash programming, recloning, insertion. I don't know. It's a very, very strange world we're living in, right? So we are having all of these factions that are already now in secrecy, having all of the tools for everything. And they are working in the shadows for the future and the next generations. They are creating their new type of humans, enhancing them, and working to produce a new type of society alongside with the Naboo and some of the other factions they're working with. As I said, the flower of change, right? The matrix of change, or the flower of doom, you choose yourself. Because it has a downside to it. For that one also involves some of the Dark Avatar Collective, underworld energies, what have you. But that's part of the process. They are of this warring faction that thinks, yeah, wars and disasters will change things on this planet. So we need crisis after crisis to make people change, which apparently seems to be the only way humans within the fourth cycle really get their shit up and going. But to put it as it is, they are no longer focusing on the general population. They have learned throughout the last 10, 15 years that led to absolutely nothing. The stellar activation cycle was where the inserted fifth chromosomal or fifth cycle level inside the human programs should have activated, and it didn't. So they're moving on. They are moving beyond. Now they are targeting the ones that has it naturally as part of their original energy system and template structure. And they will put all of their effort into activating them. So that's also part of some of the 5D New Earth population, the groups that are going on there. So the fourth cycles that were modified to carry what we call the fifth chromosomal level, they have been abandoned because that's the military projects, and they flunked and failed during the Orion takeover in 2018. The hybrids, they are not for this reality, but they are inserted here where they are being produced to being transferred once this body's gone. Sometimes they actually just extract the energy system prematurely. They are produced here so that they can be put into a more suitable type of organic vessel in the parallel universal matrix. But they need to brew it here because the parallel universal matrix still has a lot of glitches in their reality program because it has not gone through the same amount of time and hasn't got the same amount of details as we have here, which means that what they try to produce in their own system will be flawed and not hold all of the components of what an organic life form needs to be functional within a reality field. And our body has that due to the re-engineering over and over and over again, going back to the after timeline event recreations and re-engineering we did back then, and that's zillions of years ago. So they still need the human form to be able to do this, but it's just a matter of time before they're done here, all depending on where the 2-8 pillar activation and cleanup cycle, where that one goes, and how humanity, where we will stand after that, whether it will be dystopia or the transhuman world, or it will be for those of us who are shifting out and going into the new type of realities that we will be able to see as part of the enhanced humans, because they are running on these, as I talked about, they're already reality field insertions inside our reality that runs parallel with our reality inside the enclosure. That's called the elite programs and the elite reality fields. for fun. I'm not going to call it that one. They have a fun name for it anyways, but that's connected to something else. Sorry about that. I don't want to put that one in. It doesn't really make sense. It only makes sense if you're in contact with these races and understand their sense of humor. Okay, so that's the future humans, and they are doing their thing already now. That's the breakaway civilizations. So just to put that one in context as well, so you kind of have that structure division that is going to happen when you are dealing with these kind of things. And that's why I kind of say, yeah, whatever is in prison and whatever is connected to the Dark Avatar Collective, let it go. Let it go. Don't go there. You can battle and you can change, you can transform with the parallel universal matrix until it reaches a certain degree of transhumanism, so to speak, where everything is being run by what we call bionically read types of code systems, which are very mechanical, similar to what we kind of hold of the Greys, because the Greys are not going to let completely go of their type of organism. They will have different groups of that. So eventually that is not a place to go either. And then, of course, we have the enhanced humans and what they are doing. They are still struck by the use of the Atlantean genetics, so they are still struggling. So it's not that they will necessarily succeed because they have made some really bad decisions along the way. So that's also part of the problem. Some of the enhanced humans were part of the Giza complex and all of that things that have now turned into becoming part of the Dark Avatar Collective. So there is nothing here right now that kind of suggests, yeah, this is the right solution either. So that's also part of being a change maker, that you can kind of navigate in that environment, that this is not about just fixing things and then things get better. And that's why I put in a little bit of my own personal history, because I have lived a life where I never really got to the point where things became good. I'm just kind of used to just, okay, I patch myself back up. I'll do the crying. I'll do the mourning. I'll do the repairing. I'll get myself back in peace. It will take a fucking long time. It took me 3 years to get out of the 2018 event and the things I was hit with in Australia. It took me 3 years. It's still not gone. I'm still battling with it from time to time. It took me years to get over my divorce. It took me years to get me over my childhood, but I kept going. I kept transforming. I kept changing. I kept developing. I kept cleaning up. I kept working with myself until that trait was gone, until that depression mark was out, until the sad memories of the not being seen and heard and loved and cared for in my family were gone, etc., etc. All of these things because they were put there to create that weakness that would demolish my original 5th chromosomal feature. That's also important to understand. So our childhoods are not necessarily just flukes of incidents or something that just happened. Sometimes there is actually a very, very good reason why we have been put into the families that we have been put into. I would say there is all the time a very good reason why we have put into the families. And that's one of the awakening processes in the 4th cycle, to realize that family units do not exist. Might be people you care about, but you need to understand what they are. You need to deal with them as they are. And in the times ahead of us, you need to look at them and see what can you expect of them and what can you demand of them. Are they like the animals in the enclosure in the zoo that just needs to be fed and be taken care of and just be patted on the head because that's all that there's possible to do? Then you do that. You don't try to put them into the wilderness where they will succumb right away because they don't know to exist in the wilderness. So you let them be where they are and you just make sure that they are comfortable where they are and it's a good life. That's all you can do, including with your actual pets at home. You do the same thing there. And you don't push the buttons of these people. But the ones that have the potential for it, and that's a minority of the human population as things are right now, we need to begin to work together as a psychic energetic community. And the first step is for us to get out of the physical energies and begin to really see reality as it truly is and work with it from the correct levels of whatever it is. And then later on, once we master this as individuals, we can begin to think about meeting up, not just as a kind of energetic collective, but also be a physical inside this reality possibility. It all depends on where we are and how we have worked ourselves out of the different factions. And if we're allowed to do so, then we can begin to team up. And then the discussions we will have will be on the energetic level first, on the reality field sciences first, of the true human, true humanoid potentials and problems and what we should do and what we originally were here to do and what we are engineered to do and what we chose to come here to do, etc. And it would be a discussion about how do we complete the cycles? How do we do the transition? What is necessary for humanity? How do we solve the issues of humanity? What is to be solved of issues with humanity? For instance, just doing the little 15 square meter garden I have, I got flowers there. I need to water them all the time now because we have very, very hot weather here in Denmark as well. So is that the right solution to keep watering them, or should I just let these flowers die out because they are demanding a lot of water? They were made for another era. They were made for another time period where we had rains during summertime. In the future, we won't have that. So, and we must begin to preserve our water resources. So we can't just have flowers in our garden that we need to keep watering so that they look beautiful. So that's letting go of species. That's letting go of biodiversity. That's letting go of plant diversity, which is not nice. It hurts. I don't like doing it. But again, it's a question of, right now in Denmark, for instance, we are lucky that we haven't had longer periods of drought, but we had it and we are getting more and more of it. Water ceased to fall from the sky earlier and earlier. We already had drought in spring. So that is a triage that must be made. Difficult one, but necessary. Just to put things in context. So, with that one said, I'm going to do a little sum up video as the last video in this course, and then in the Changemaker course 2, I will begin to dive into some of the more, now we kind of got the idea of what does it mean to be a changemaker or become a changemaker. Can you become a changemaker? Yes, if you have the traits for it already. Can you become a changemaker if you don't have the traits for it? Well, you have to work damn hard, and only if your faction allows you to do so, and only if they decide to enhance you with fifth cycle types of genetics, then you can become one. You might not be it now, you might become it later. Some of you are sleepers. You don't know you have it. It's a matter of our reality reaching a certain momentum of a specific type of energy of the fifth cycle, which is the 2025 timeline. Once that begins to kick in, some of you will activate, and there you will discover you are actually having the fifth chromosome. But the question is, in what state? Is it the one that links up to the fall of Atlantis, or is it the one that links up to some of the grids and networks of the Atlantean period or the fifth cycle that did not have the third cycle energy connected to it, which were more aligned with the fourth cycle and therefore did not go into the heavy fall of Atlantis? And that's the ones that got reseeded under the Syrian project. So most of the ones that were hit hard by the third cycle energies during the fall of Atlantis, their fifth cycle genetics were taken out. And the ones that were reseeded had the fifth cycle configuration, the early versions of the fifth cycle, in going back to the early stages of Atlantis before everything went south. So that's a premature fifth cycle type of chromosomal feature. So there's a lot of things that needs to be learned. There's a lot of lessons that must be learned the hard way by doing it and by failing and keep pushing in spite of all of the resistance, in spite of everything that we're doing against all the odds and the prospects of anything. It's not good. It's like trying to figure out a way to generate water in the Sahara. What do you call it? Sahara Desert. Sorry about that. Trying to create water in the Sahara Desert from the environment itself. That takes a lot of skills and a lot of planning and a lot of invention. And that's where we are. We need to be enormously innovative, but at the same time also have the skill sets and dynamics, the sciences and the psychology to persevere and keep going and keep going and keep going, even though it seems completely futile. But we know eventually we will crack the code. We will crack the technology behind the solution, and we will crack the sciences and get them to work together in the correct manner. Because when we do all of this, we transform our energy system. And the more we work with these things, the impossible levels of reality, the more we transform our energy system into being in sync with these original versions of reality. So as long as we work within the base program, we will remain base program humans. We need to lift above. We need to transcend the base program. Just do what is necessary here and then work on all levels of the original density, holographic vibration and radiation unit and energetic reality settings via the original sciences of our system and what it actually means to be part of this solar system, which is everything I teach, right? But we also need to look at others so we can create dynamics, so we can see, okay, there are other versions of the same thing, but what is that version? What does that lead to? And then develop our discernment so we understand the different factions that are here. So that's also part of it, without being consumed by them. So there's a lot of things that needs to be learned to be a change maker, as well as the forerunners for the 2025 timeline. So that's also a pilot project or a pilot course that I will do later on, but that will be fully oriented towards the fifth cycle energies and what it means to get into the fifth cycle, more than I've done here. Here we are doing the leap from the fourth into the fifth. That's the change maker. And then we need to master that one. So when we are in the fifth, we become the forerunners of trying to catch the 2025 timeline. So we have a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff ahead of us. So going into the deeper details have now been covered of becoming a change maker and what it means to be a change maker. And then we will see how many more courses that will come from that. I have plenty of ideas. I already outlined all of them in this course material, and I will dive into the most necessary parts of the different functions that we will have inside the base program as change makers. So the first step is to transform ourselves, then begin to work with something inside the base program that will change our locality, not only ourselves and our home, but via our businesses or via the work that we are doing where we earn our monies inside the base program will be in alignment with the future sciences, the density one system. No matter what it will be, we will know and understand there will be the density one version of the parallel universal matrix. They will trade technology. We will understand the dynamics of the enhanced humans that will do both, and we will understand the original progression dynamics. Thank you.